doing things. And renewable energy is one. So I must congratulate the organizing committee for having this theme on renewable energy. In terms of Bhutan's development philosophy, Bhutan follows the middle path. We call this as a middle path as the national strategy for sustainable development. Gross national happiness is being pursued as a development philosophy rather than the gross national product. But from the very onset of the gross national happiness as a development philosophy, it has been made very clear that that doesn't mean that gross GDP is not important. GDP is equally important. GDP should be used as a tool to achieve happiness, not as an ultimate end. So Bhutan follows middle path as a national strategy for the sustainable development. So this gross national happiness in terms as shared by the fifth king of Bhutan is simply development with values. Sometimes it is misunderstood that when you talk about gross national happiness, people often assume that gross domestic product is not important. That is not true. GDP is equally important, but ultimate aim should be to achieve happiness of everyone around us, including the environment. So gross national happiness, just one or two slides on this. What is gross national happiness? Gross national happiness comprises of 4 pillars, 9 domains, 33 indicators, and 124 variables. These 4 pillars, if you look at these 4 pillars, it talks about equitable socio-economic development. So we stress that development is important, but it should not be concentrated or focused only on the urban areas. It should be distributed. The whole population should benefit from the development, not simply the urban areas. So it says equitable socio-economic development. Then preservation and promotion of culture and spiritual heritage. Gross national happiness also promotes, talks about preservation promotion. We are saying culture and promotion should go hand in hand with the development. It should not be unlike some other countries. So we try to preserve. Our development activities are not at the expense of culture and spiritual heritage. Then the third pillar is the conservation of the environment. We say that environment is equally important. Development activities should not be at the expense of degrading the environment. And finally, the last pillar of the gross national happiness is good governance. So these are the 4 pillars: the equitable socio-economic development, preservation and promotion of culture, conservation of environment, and good governance. 9 we have 4 pillars, 9 indicators, and then this includes psychological well-being, health, time use, education, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity and resilience, and living standards, and finally the psychological well-being. These are the 9 indicators, and we have not only that, the Sustainable Development Index, or there are often questions asked, how about Sustainable Development Index or Sustainable Society Index? So these are also included in the GNH, like CO2 emissions and renewable energy are also included in the Gross National Happiness Index. So this is brief about gross national happiness. Therefore, because we pursue gross national happiness for everyone around us, so it is also captured in the Article 5 of the Constitution that entrusts every Bhutanese as the trustee of kingdoms, natural resources, and environment for the benefit of present and future generation. In fact, if we look at, we consider that environment as a happiness, it is also reflected in the Constitution that and mandates preservation of biodiversity and the environment. So Bhutan has actually committed to international community to remain as a net sink for the greenhouse gases in years to come. So in terms of energy, if we look at Bhutan has no fossil fuel deposits, rich hydro, but however, Bhutan has very rich hydropower resources. From the analysis, Bhutan has known that it has a potential to generate at least 30 gigawatt, out of which 23.7 gigawatt is techno-economically feasible. And currently, as of today, we are talking as of today, 2.3 gigawatt of hydropower has been installed, and we also have 600 kilowatt of wind. Apart from this, Bhutan is also working on there are 3 hydropower plants under construction, which will total to 2.9 gigawatt. And just 2 weeks back, Bhutan has also started started work on installation of 180 kilowatt solar PV system. Then in terms of hydropower, if we look at, because Bhutan has a lot of hydropower, so 99.9% of population has access to grid electricity. Otherwise, Bhutan has access to electricity 100%. 99.9% of population is connected to the grid. All others, that is 0.1% is demand is more or less equal to 350 megawatt, which happens around in the month of January because of increase in the heating demand of the residents. So 70% of generation is more or less exported to India as of today. Then often we say that Bhutan is not carbon neutral. Often we are asked that is Bhutan carbon neutral? We often say that Bhutan is not carbon neutral. In fact, what we say is Bhutan is carbon negative, because we take in more carbon than what we actually produce. So we say Bhutan is carbon negative. Actually, Bhutan generates 2.2 million tons of CO2 equivalent per annum, but its forest sequestrates around 3 times the 2.2 million tons. And it is net sink to 4 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So if we export clean energy to India, it offsets 6 million tons of CO2 equivalent per annum. And by 2025, it is projected that clean electricity export will offset around 17 million tons of CO2 equivalent per annum. That would be around, in Bhutan, if we can export half of hydropower potential, then can offset about 50 million tons of CO2 equivalent, which is nearly equal to CO2 generated by New York City per annum. So there are a lot of potential that hydropower can do in Bhutan, although most are exported to India. So the government thinks that the future of Bhutan's socio-economic development and its aspirations for self-reliance will be largely dependent on how successfully the growth in the hydropower sector is planned and implemented. So the government of the day, irrespective of the political parties, the government of the day works to develop hydropower. So as presented in the previous slide, there is 2.9 gigawatt of hydropower plant under construction, and also there are talks going on with the with the companies in India as well as with the government of India to start construction of new mega hydropower projects, which would also include the reservoir types as well. However, with the hydropower, there is also risk associated with hydropower. Most of the rivers in Bhutan are fed by the glacial lakes. So as we have seen recently in the Uttarakhand, so there is risk. There is also a risk of reliance on a single electric source and the threats of climate change, which is now real. And as of now, we have not diversified the energy source. And every year, if you look at our energy trading balance with the government of India, the import of fossil fuel is increasing due to the increase in number of vehicles in the country. Then there's also threat of climate change. So we always ask, one of the most emerging issues that Bhutan faces is also the economist always asks is Bhutan putting all eggs in one basket? That's the question's been now asked, and it's also been debated among the economists as well as among the technocrats and the academicians. The problem looks real because hydropowers, as we know, it involves huge investment. So sometimes, depending on the size on the capacity of the hydropower, the investment required is twice the size of the country's GDP annually, and it leads to import-export mismatch because there are a lot of imports from the other countries, both in terms of man and machinery. Then heavily dependent on runoff rivers. Although Bhutan has 2.3 gigawatt of installed capacity of hydropower plant, in peak winter, 2 years back, we used to import from India in the winter. But since 2020, because of another new hydropower plant, now we do not import, but it's just enough to supply the domestic load in winter only. Because we do not have any reservoir type hydropower, so in winter, in the past, we used to import as well. And there is also surplus power in some Indian states, so it's likely that the market would be limited. So there is another question asked, therefore, is Bhutan trying to do too much too soon? So this is another question that we face now. Yes.
Sir.
So the emerging issue is, should we do it? Should we construct whatever is feasible? If so, or if not, how much should we do it? There are these 4 questions. And how soon should we do it? Or who should do it? So these are the 4 questions that we ask ourselves. We ask who should do it, because as of now, the involvement of private sector is very limited. So it's always turnkey project, and there's always these questions, 4 questions that we ask ourselves: should we do it, or how much should we do it? How soon should we do it, and who should do it? If you look at current scenario, then this graph, if you look at the total energy supply in Bhutan and the fuel mix, that the data is a little bit old, but this is the latest data that is officially available. There are a lot of opportunities if you look at that the renewable energy can actually replace. There is petroleum products, which is 21%, coal and derivatives, which is 15%, biomass, which is 36%. Although biomass has decreased over the years, but in terms of absolute figures, this is quite significant for the population size. And if you look at one of the sectors that Bhutan needs to look at is the transport sector, which is 18.64%. And the transport sector is mainly responsible for the import of the fossil fuels. So there are also initiatives for the transport to replace the conventional cars to some extent. And building sector is another sector that Bhutan is looking at in terms of renewable energy, not simply in terms of generating, but also from the demand side management that we are looking at. Then, therefore, we say that Bhutan also has a good potential for other renewable energy sources. From the studies, we have seen that there's a 12 gigawatt potential for solar energy, and 761 megawatt is techno-economically feasible for the wind energy out of 64 gigawatt that is technically feasible, but not economically. There is also feasibility or for the municipal solid waste to generate energy from the municipal solid waste, although nothing much has been done on this. So if you look at annual wind power density, it is concentrated around this area and also some around this area. These are the places. The current 600 kilowatt wind turbine is located exactly here. And in terms of solar energy, if you look at Bhutan receives very good solar radiation throughout the year, so the potential is very high. Currently, there is a 180 kilowatt solar power plant being constructed here. Then the problem with the other renewable energy sources is that it is disadvantaged by the availability of adequate low-cost hydropower, mostly from the mega hydropower that is green and clean. So anything that Bhutan is trying to invest in terms of other renewable energy sources always compared with the cost with the mega hydropower plants. So this is one of the drawbacks of having mega hydropower plants. So if you look at in terms of cost, you'll find that wind is likely to cost between 15.3 to 30.5. We call this as our currency is mil term per unit. Yeah, so mil term is at par with the Indian rupees. For solar, it is likely to cost between 17.5 to 29.9. And then for small hydropower, 4.2 to 8.8. So for the mega hydropower projects, we do not even include because that's far cheaper. So because of this, the other renewable energy sources are always at disadvantage, and there's always questions asked. When you can do things at a cheaper with the larger scale, why do you invest? Yeah? And then we also have this question, but because there is also energy source not diversified and need to diversify the sources. So there are always questions, and now the government has realized and we are investing. So government recognizes the need for a renewable energy policy to promote the use of available RE sources to strengthen national energy security. So they have one of the reasons is high capital cost for other renewable energy technologies. As of now, there is no feed-in tariff regulation, although there are some private companies or the house owners who wish to have rooftop solar PV system, but there's no feed-in tariff regulation currently. And most of the time, solar energy in Bhutan in the past has always been used as a precursor to the grid electrification. So once the government extends the grid to the individual households, then this solar PV system is lifted and it's no more used. So this is normally used as a precursor for the grid electrification. Because government recognizes the need to diversify the energy source, government targets to generate at least 20 megawatt by 2025 from other renewable energy sources, which is basically solar and wind. So private sector can also play a role in that, up to 5 megawatt. In terms of subsidies and incentives, there's a tax holiday for a period of 10 years, 5-year income tax exemption, and waiver of import duties and sales tax for the solar, for all other renewable energy sources. So if you look at in terms of government's plan, there's a plan to have 30 megawatt solar power plant at one of the districts in Bhutan, and then 17 megawatt power plant another at the other district in the west. This is in the northeast, Bhutan. This is in the northwest, and then 23 megawatt. This is also in the northwest. Wind power. As I have presented, one of the sectors, energy intensive sector is the transport. So Bhutan is also doing some work on this, and government has come up with the initiative to introduce or to otherwise to replace 300 very generous support in terms of subsidy. Government is offering 20% cost subsidy up to a maximum of 5,500 USD for each taxi with 50% loan equity. And currently, as of now, government also provides free charging. So the EV users need not pay if they charge in the quick chargers. This is paid by the government. So Currently, there is no tax on any of the e-vehicles. So there's a lot of work doing on also in the transport sector as well. With this, I would like to end my presentation, and this was just brief on the opportunities and challenges that Bhutan faces to develop and promote renewable energy. With this, thank you for your time and thank you for listening to this. Thank you. It will be my pleasure to discuss if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we are open to questions. If any of the participants have any question for Dr. Landu,
Speaker, Professor uh, Vasi. Professor Vasi obtained his BTech from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay in 1969 and PhD from the John Hopkins University in 1973. Professor Vasi taught at the John Hopkins University and IIT Delhi before moving to IIT Bombay in 1981, where Professor Vasi is currently working as an emeritus professor. Professor Vasi's research interests include reliability of solar modules, deployment of solar PV in India, global deployment of solar PV, nanocrystal-based solar cells, nanoelectronics. Professor Vasi has more than 47 years of experience in academics with vast research experience. So we are in fact delighted and privileged to listen to Professor Vasi's talk. Thank you. May I now request Professor Vasi to take over the presentation?
Thank you, Professor Lendo. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And also, Professor Landup, thanks very much for your nice presentation. I think India and the rest of the world have a lot to learn from Bhutan in terms of sustainability, which is very much a part of your gross national happiness activities. I'll present my screen. I'll present my slide now. Let me go and go to the screen. Uh, is my screen visible to everyone?
yes, sir, it is clearly visible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, it's a pleasure for me to be here at this conference. And I'll talk today about recent developments in India's solar program. I think I will have about a 30-minute presentation. Is that all right for the schedule?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Papul. Let me move on. Here's the brief outline of my talk. India's solar mission. As you all know, India has a very major and aggressive solar mission. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'll talk about some of the opportunities which are being presented because of the solar mission, and also, of course, some challenges which are coming up. As we all know, India has excellent solar resource. Most of the country is very well illuminated by solar energy. And recognizing this, the solar mission, at that time it was the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, was launched in 2010, and the target was 22 gigawatts by 2022. And in fact, at that time, this was an important part of the National Action Plan for Climate Control, which was being negotiated with the other countries and the UN. And I must also mention that that is the time when the National Center for Photovoltaic Research and Education, or NCPRE, was set up at IIT Bombay in 2010. And that's when I first got involved with the photovoltaics, solar energy activities in the country, and of course, in fact, at IIT also. Let's look at this, how this has developed. that 22 gigawatt target, which I mentioned in 2015, the government announced that India would install not just 22 gigawatts, but in fact 100 gigawatts of solar energy by 2022. In other words, within the same time period, this target was quintuple to 100 gigawatts. Just to put that in perspective, the total electricity installed capacity today is about 375 gigawatts. So we're adding another, maybe another 60 or 70 gigawatts to that through solar should happen in the next couple of years. This would put India really in the top 2 or 3 solar power producers. And till the end of 2020, about 40 gigawatts of solar had been installed. I must also mention now that in 2020, beginning of 2020, the government announced that India would actually go for 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030, of which approximately 300 gigawatts would be solar energy. A very major target, perhaps one of the largest announced targets anywhere in the world. And also it would really cost money, an investment of about 1 lakh crore rupees per year for solar alone for the next 10 years. But the government's long-term strategy is indeed to use solar energy to replace fossil fuels, not only for electricity generation, which is what we started off with, but even mobility, cooking, etc. Of course, when we talk about solar energy, there are really 2 types of solar energy. One is concentrating solar power, CSP. The other is photovoltaics, PV. As you all probably know, CSP really uses focused solar energy. You can see that what is happening here is that the mirror focuses the solar energy onto this thin tube, which is carrying water, produces steam, and the steam drives a turbine. This is more complex engineering, definitely, but also it requires a high, what's called a direct normal incident radiation. But the great advantage is that, and that's why I put that in green here, is that it has inbuilt or at least partial inbuilt storage, because once heated up, you can actually continue to drive the turbine with the steam for quite some time, even after the sun disappears. On the other hand, photovoltaics uses solar cells, which directly convert the sun's radiation to electricity. It does even quite well with the so-called global horizontal radiation. In other words, you don't have to have sunlight directly shining on the mirrors or on the solar panels. Even the diffused radiation is reasonably efficient in generating electricity. And that's important for India because in many places, because of dusty conditions, for example, sandstorms in Rajasthan, or of course, in the Indo-Gangetic Plain, we know that there is a lot of haze and so on. It's not very easy to get this direct normal radiation, but it's quite easy to get reasonably good global horizontal radiation. It's also very fast and easy to implement. And one great advantage is that it's scalable from 10 watts, which is what you might require for a small home solar system, to gigawatt or even more than that, tens of gigawatts located in very large solar parks. However, there is no built-in storage. When the sun goes down, there is no electricity being produced. So these are the pluses and minuses we have to contend with. I'm going to focus really only on photovoltaics because we are seeing over the last 10 years since the launch of the solar mission, it's really been PV which has been the main driver for solar energy in India. And in my opinion, this will continue for quite some time more. Becoming more and more important for all of us in India, in Bhutan, of course, and really all over the world. The ability to serve areas which are off-grid, which is already happening, for example, in Bhutan, as Professor Lendup said, but also really even for India, many of the off-grid locations are well served by solar energy. highly scalable from very small to very large sizes, very fast implementation. You can put up a 250 megawatt plant really in a few months, what I like to call almost a plug and play technology. It's increasingly cost competitive. The levelized cost of electricity just for the solar, not for storage, etc., which might have to accompany it, but more on that later. But it's very cost competitive. It's 2 rupees per unit. This is actually today the cheapest form of energy available in India and in most parts of the world. So this is one great change from 2010 when the National Solar Mission was launched to today. We've come to a situation where solar energy is the most cost competitive way of getting electricity. Also, it enables India to meet our COP21 Paris commitment, which was that 40% of our installed capacity would be renewable energy by 2030. In fact, if we include hydro, we have already reached 38%. And indeed, India is the only G20 country whose climate commitments, which we made at Paris, are on a path compatible to limit warming below 2 degrees centigrade. Of course, this is a tough target, but we must all strive to get to that point. And also, finally, solar energy provides energy security for India. So these are the reasons why for us, solar energy is definitely very important. Just a one slide history of solar photovoltaics. First, solar cells came up as much of electronics and microelectronics did at Bell Labs in the 50s, and they were using it for rural telephone equipment. This picture here shows one of the earliest solar cells being set up. And very interestingly, of course, this is also being used to power mobile towers in India today. In rural areas, mobile towers get their energy now from solar energy. Satellites started using it because this was the main source of power in space in the early years, and in fact continuing till today. And even, for example, India's first satellite Aryabhatta used solar cells. In fact, you can see on the outside of the satellite, these are all the solar cells. But of course, what we are really talking about is the terrestrial deployment, not really in space. And all over the world in remote off-grid areas, this started being used since about 1975 or so. But what we see today are these very large grid-connected deployments since about 2000 as the solar cells became cheaper. But of course, in recent years, about 2016, 17, 18, we have reached and crossed what's called grid parity, and that is, can you generate solar energy at a cost less than that of what the normal grid energy costs. Little bit about solar photovoltaics. Again, my talk will be not too much on the technical aspects, because I know that in the audience will be people from many different backgrounds. How does solar photovoltaics work? Well, it's a direct conversion of solar photons to electricity. A photon comes in, it produces, as you know, in a material, in a semiconductor, for example, silicon, it produces a whole electron pair. And if these holes and electrons can be separated out, which for a silicon PN junction solar cell is done really by this electric field which is present near the junction. If the electrons and holes can be separated out, then they flow in the external circuit and produce a current. So in a sort of theoretical sense, the photoelectric effect is being used, and the physics of solar energy through photovoltaics is really quite simple. Of course, there are a lot of complications, and what can you do to facilitate or to improve the performance of these solar cells is really where a lot of research continues even till today. One of the important things we have seen is that the solar module costs have decreased very, very significantly. Just for example, starting with very high costs in the 1970s when it first started being deployed, to very low cost. Today, for example, the cost is only of a module. A PV module is only about 20 US cents per watt. So a very significant reduction in the cost. And that is what has made solar so viable today. Module costs are still the largest single part of the system, although its share is decreasing. So we're increasingly worried about other parts of the solar system than just the module, which was the dominant cost in the early years. But we'll look at that part also a bit later. Solar module construction is not very complicated. It, of course, uses the solar cell itself, typically a silicon solar cell, but not necessarily. It could be many other materials also. It uses a silicon solar cell, and that's packaged into the module. And there's an encapsulant on both sides. There's a glass on top and a back sheet at the bottom. And then an aluminum frame really packages it all together. So here is what a typical solar module will look like from the top. And it has many cells, typically 60 or 72 cells. And the size of the module is about 1 meter by 2 meters. And it can supply up to 400, 450 watts, anywhere between 350 to 450, now moving to actually 500 watts per module. Typical efficiencies of these range from 15 to 23%. Sounds a bit low, but what it means is that this ample amount of solar radiation on a typical day, on a sunny typical day in India, you might be getting about 1,000 watts per meter square. So about 20 or 23% of that would be converted into electricity. So it's not bad because the solar energy coming in is free, and we can actually generate out of this almost 250, 230 watts per meter square. Here's the PV learning curve. And these are all important things to understand, because why has the cost of solar cells decreased so rapidly? Of course, one point is improved technology. That's one reason it has become more efficient, etc. But a big answer to this question is we've got more and more PV modules being manufactured. And this is a virtuous cycle, because the more modules you manufacture, the cheaper it becomes. The cheaper it becomes, more people want to use it. And so more modules get manufactured and so on. And you can see here's the historical curve. It's been decreasing at maybe 23% over a long period. But in the recent past, actually, it has decreased even more rapidly. And we're now really approaching the 1 terawatt deployment. And I think in about next year, 2021, or early 2022 or so, we'll reach the 1 terawatt of deployment globally. Not only in India, of course, that will be much less, but globally we would have a terawatt of solar deployed. Here's the grid parity I was talking about. Here is a plot I've taken actually from sometime in this was probably in about 2004, when this really grid parity. In 2010, when we had the solar mission launch, it was really considered to be a holy grail of solar energy, but we have gone past it, and we have gone far past it. Levelized cost of electricity today is 2 kilowatts per kilowatt hour per unit in India, and this is more or less a little bit more or less internationally as well. But these are large upfront costs. The upfront cost is somewhere between 5 to 7 crores per megawatt, or about $1 billion per gigawatt you want to install. In other words, you have to install all of the solar modules and set up the solar plant. That's going to cost money. After that, the operational cost is not very large at all, because solar energy is coming in free. Of course, some maintenance has to be there, but the upfront costs are very large, and this is really the major stumbling block in having solar really going up all over the world. I'll just mention briefly recent deployments in India in 2019. I don't have the 2020 data, has not come out yet. in terms of installations during 19, India was the third ranked country. And even in terms of total installed capacity, India is fifth. We will soon move past both Germany and Japan, and we will be the third largest total installed capacity of solar. Some examples of recent large deployments in India. The two largest solar parks in the world are in India. These are the Bhadla Park in Rajasthan. These are all a couple of gigawatts each, and the Pavagada Park in Karnataka. Just for example, this 2 gigawatt Shakti Sthal power plant in Karnataka, it really occupies 13,000 acres. That's a bit of a problem, and we'll look at that again later. But one very good thing they have come is that they have really taken in people's participation, and the land is leased from the farmers. So there's a good synergy between the farmers, the original people who own the land, and the power plant. That's something we should remember as we move forward. Some of the opportunities which are being created by our 100 and now the 300 gigawatt target. I've mentioned some of these here, but let's go through them quickly. One is that access to energy makes life easier. And that is certainly true in many of the rural areas which were earlier not able to access electricity. Just for example, Professor Junjunwala at IIT Madras has a very innovative DC microgrid program. You can use DC, and in fact, now if you think about it, do you really need AC at all? And the answer is most probably not, because if you are generating electricity and using it all locally, that original reason for having AC power completely disappears. So you can have everything done by DC. That improves the efficiency of solar, and this has been widely deployed in India. Also, I'll just mention one of my colleagues here at IIT Bombay who's developed a 24/7 rural solar home, and it's being set up in many places now. But the most interesting thing about this is the modules are being manufactured locally in Rajasthan by a unit run by rural women, and the village women are actually trained for the installation and maintenance of these rural homes. In fact, Professor Solanki tells me that they do a fantastic job, much better than the menfolk whom he has employed. So this may be a very good path forward for us. Access to energy provides rural employment. And again, I'll just give two examples which I've seen. One is the solar charkha, which was created by Dr. Karunakaran at Mgiri, that's the Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Rural Industrialization, because Dr. Karunakaran realized that rural industrialization can happen only if there is a constant source of electricity available. And he really went into the development of all kinds of solar energy equipment, including the solar charkha. And another example is solar, with the use of solar energy for water pumping in rural Bihar, which has really created again a third crop possibility, and therefore a lot of increase in the income for farmers in places like rural Bihar. Talking about farmers, can we combine photovoltaics and agriculture? Because if you don't do that, then you might have to look at possible farmland which can be used in between rows of such vertical PV modules. So these are all areas which we can actually look at. A lot of research going on, what are the best ways of doing it, and so on. And let us see how things develop. Of course, job creation is there, especially when I look at rooftop deployment. Rooftops, we do have a very good rooftop opportunity, and there is a lot of rooftop deployment happening. And most states have this net metering or gross metering policy. And rooftop deployment, especially because they are all small distributed rooftops, there is a great opportunity for job creation here. And finally, I'll just mention a little bit about innovation. I think there's also a lot of possibility for high-tech startups really using solar energy. And many of the big companies are also, of course, into solar energy now, but a lot of opportunities for startups. And a couple of things I'll mention is some of the new materials which are coming up for PV solar cells besides silicon. That's something we need to look at. Also, as I mentioned here, power electronics and the power plant monitoring, all of these are new opportunities coming up. I would like to mention these perovskite solar cells because many people feel that this is a path for future solar cells. Perovskites, the very interesting thing about them is that the cost of fabrication for these perovskite solar cells will be much less than for silicon solar cells. And perovskite solar cell efficiencies really in the last few years have gone from less than 3% to more than 25%, really rivaling and starting to increase that of silicon. However, it's still too early to say they will replace silicon because stability and scalability are two problems. And also, the perovskite is a complex hybrid organic inorganic material which has at its center a lead ion, and if you try to replace the lead by other materials, there's a problem. And you know that lead is a material which can be toxic when it leaches into water and so on, and so many people would like to avoid lead. So these are some of the problems of perovskites. But people are still pursuing perovskites, and in particular, they're pursuing perovskite on silicon tandem cells. In other words, they use a complex structure, really a very complex structure. It has a silicon cell at the bottom, and on top of that is put a perovskite. So you can actually harvest the output, the electrical output from both the silicon and the perovskite going together. And today, for example, the efficiency record of such a perovskite on silicon tandem cell is almost 30%, much higher than you can even theoretically achieve with a silicon solar cell. So there's a hope that you can drive these perovskite on silicon tandems to 32, 33%, which would really be very, very interesting and would bring down the costs even further. However, just look at the problem. That is, this almost 30% tandem is on a tiny little thing which is less than 1 centimeter square. This will obviously not be useful for generating mega and giga and terawatts of electricity. But a great area for research, and research on that is going on in India and all over the world. Another interesting thing is the roll-to-roll processing. How do you make solar cells? Silicon solar cells have to be made in a silicon foundry. Those are very expensive. You need clean rooms, you need a lot of expensive equipment and so on. But if you can do roll-to-roll processing, something like you do for a newspaper really, and print on the solar cell as the plastic goes from one roll to the other, you can really make solar cells very cheaply. And certainly there are niche applications. Make it cheaply, but also you can have a flexible substrate. So there are niche applicants for such flexible perovskite solar cells. Many of them are possible, for example, portable solar cells, wearable solar cells, etc. So there is a lot of possibility, and especially for India, where capital cost is always a problem, roll-to-roll processing can be a possible answer. All of these opportunities exist, but quickly let me go through some of the challenges also. One of them is the long-term reliability, and there are some of the other challenges as well. And of course, challenges are always, it's good to encounter challenges, because it challenges you and you can come up with creative solutions. Let's look at the challenges. One is the reliability, long-term reliability. See, these solar modules are supposed to last for 25 years. And that's why the levelized cost of electricity over this long period of 25 years is so low, 2 rupees a kilowatt hour. But to ensure that it does last for 25 years, that means they must. How long do they last? Will they last for 25 years? This is an important question to ask. And I'll just show briefly result of one of our recent surveys. And I'll just point out that hot climates really perform significantly worse than non-hot climates. For example, if you compare modules which have been installed in Rajasthan to modules which have been installed in Ladakh, the ones in Ladakh, because they're not in a hot climate, actually show much less degradation than in Rajasthan. So, of course, we have to work on that, and we are indeed looking at reasons for this, why this is happening. We have a good idea why this is happening, but also to really look for solutions to the problems of the hot climates. Another challenge for India is the soiling. We do see in many parts of India a lot of soiling which is taking place. And this is, for example, just our rooftop test bed in IIT Bombay. You can see here is a panel which is not cleaned. Here is a panel which is cleaned. And in Mumbai, we see losses of 15% per month. So if you don't clean a module, you will see a 15% loss. And that's, of course, a very large loss. So it's easy for us to clean this rooftop test bed. But how do you clean a 1 gigawatt power plant, which is, going over thousands of acres? It's not very easy at all. And there are many things being tried, robotic cleaning, waterless cleaning, anti-soiling coatings. All of these are very good areas for research. Incidentally, here is, of course, one of our trips to rural communities. This is a picture taken how not to clean, what I would call how not to clean solar modules. Because if you walk on them, those silicon solar cells are quite fragile and they will just simply break and cause problems. Land availability will start becoming a problem as we go to 300 gigawatts, because you can't use farmland, you can't use areas where there is no grid connectivity, because that will cost a lot of money. How are you going to do it? Well, possible solutions are increased emphasis on rooftops, agri-voltaics, which I mentioned earlier, but also interestingly, floating solar. There are many reservoirs and other large bodies of water lakes and so on. And we can actually put solar on top of this. Here's a floating solar. And the advantage is that it reduces evaporation, good for the lake. Also, it keeps the panel cooler, which is good for the solar panel, but requires more complex structures. But again, a lot of interest in this for India. And I think as we proceed, research will show whether floating solar can become a major way to deploy solar in India. I'll briefly just mention firm availability of renewable power, and that is, see, when the sun goes down, there's no power. And also, not only when the sun goes down in the evening, but if there is a cloud cover, a cloud moves in temporarily and obscures the sun, you will see a loss of power. And all of this is a big problem for the grid. How do you take care of it? There are various ways to do it. One way, of course, is to store power. So storage is now becoming increasingly important. Generating solar energy is one part, but now store the power over minutes, hours, or even weeks, really. Certainly minutes and hours to take care of passing clouds and to take care of the day-night and evening peak load variations. How do we do this? One is pumped storage, which is good for hydroelectric. Essentially, you pump up when the sun is shining, use the solar energy to pump water up to a reservoir on to a lake which is created in the hills nearby, and then use that at night. So this is good when you already have hydroelectric. And incidentally, Professor Lendup, this might be a very good opportunity for Bhutan, where you already have hydro, but combining solar and hydro might prove to be an interesting example for Bhutan. Of course, hybrid solar and wind can also complement each other. And so the solar plus wind plus battery is the most likely way forward. One of the problems really that is coming up is that, can we predict the solar radiation and wind forecasting? And this is now becoming a critical part of renewable energy, solar and wind energy. How to forecast weather not only on a daily basis, an hourly and even a minute-wise basis, but also on much longer term, monthly and yearly basis. Finally, let me touch on manufacturing of solar in India. Today, our problem is 85% of solar panels are imported, mainly from China. And really, this is true not only for India, but for all over the world. China produces about 90% of the world's solar panels. So energy security is an issue. Solar, the sun is a silicon itself, raw material, modules, glass, encapsulant, and so on. We do have some amount of solar manufacturing in India, but we need to push that much further. And one question which arises, and that is something we are working on at NCPRE, which technology is really best suited for India? I've just shown you cell manufacturing at Adani and also module manufacturing in Wari already happening in India, but we need to step this up to much larger values. Really, we need to install about 30 gigawatts per year for the next 10 years. And of this, a substantial part should now start being manufactured in India. So in conclusion, what I would say is India's 100 to 300 gigawatt national solar mission holds great opportunities and challenges for us. Solar photovoltaics really provides a path forward for us in India, quick deployment of clean and sustainable clean energy. Cost reduction has really made it very affordable, and we must take full advantage of that. The cost storage, which is now starting to happen in storage as well, this holds promise for wider deployment of solar in India and worldwide. And of course, as I said, opportunities exist in many areas. And also, of course, these challenges which have come up, including, for example, manufacturing challenges, really we must make sure that we turn them into new opportunities for us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vasi. Thank you for your very wonderful and informative presentation. If there are any pressing questions, I can take in 2 questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vasi, sir, for your excellent presentation. So hope everybody is getting benefited from your resourceful presentation. And here, sir, there is a small question, sir. So nowadays, we all are emphasizing on the solar photovoltaic energy, and we are making big plans in Rajasthan, big plans in Bengaluru and all. So here, now in the current scenario, we can see that in India, normally there is a huge problem of reliability issue. So we don't have that much of reliability in the power sector. Because of that, there are many problems regarding the unscheduled interruptions. So here, whenever the solar plant is shaded with some clouds or some pillars or buildings, or whenever there is a partial shading, then the performance of the solar photovoltaic systems getting decreased drastically. So in that case, again the reliability issue comes. Again, because of the partial shading problems, there are some additional problems such as hot spot generation, because of which mechanical damage may also occur in the solar panels. Okay, these kind of problems may occur. So now, sir, I just want to ask one question that are you doing any work to improve the performance of solar photovoltaic modules during partial shading condition or in the generation of hotspot and all, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Papul, for your question. It's a very good and very interesting question, because it's certainly true that partial shading causes the problems which you mentioned, and there are ways to get around it. Just for example, if you have some built-in smartness into the panel, you can disconnect a part of the panel which is being shaded. I must mention also that partial shading is especially a problem in rooftops because, as you said, neighboring buildings and other things will cause partial shading to occur. On large power plants, partial shading is not too much of an issue unless you have a cloud cover. But usually cloud cover will not just do a partial shading of a module, but partial shading of a power plant, and that can be more easily taken care of. An interesting problem which is arising, however, is that as we go to hybrid solar and wind power plants, where the wind turbines are mounted on the same plot as the solar plant, there the shade cast by the windmills is going to create problems like the ones you mentioned. So this is something which has to be carefully considered when designing such hybrid solar wind power plants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question.
Good morning, sir.
This will be the last
Sir.
question, please.
Yes, sir, my question is that for effective strategies of monitoring, that means once we implement plan, that means do we have some strategy for properly monitoring? There may be various parameters to monitor, like electrical parameters or the mechanical parameters. What could be the proper strategy, sir?
Yes, thank you for your question. Again, a very important and interesting question, because when we had only a few megawatts or tens of megawatts of solar deployed, it was easy to monitor it physically, really. But as we move towards hundreds of gigawatts, really the only way to monitor it is to have a completely digital monitoring, which is to be done. So this is being increasingly looked at. This whole idea of the digital transformation for solar energy is something which we and others are looking at, and has to come in a very major way. By looking at the electrical output, not only we can hopefully assess whether the plant is performing well, but if it's not performing well, by using artificial intelligence built into the digital system to assess what is possibly going wrong with the system, and therefore give some insight or input to the local persons that, okay, look, there is a problem at this point and the problem is probably so and so. So this whole idea of remote monitoring is becoming and will become even more important.
Thank you, sir. So any
Thank
more?
you, sir. Unfortunately, we cannot take in any more questions. If there are any pressing questions, I would suggest audience to email to the professor as and when you wish to. So with this, I would like to request all audience to switch on your mic and offer a big round of applause to Professor Vasi. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Lendo.
With this, we are now over to the first session technical paper presentation. In this session we have 4 technical papers to be presented. I would like to request all presenters to introduce yourself before the presentation, and after the presentation, if anyone has any pressing questions, please raise your hand With this, may I now call upon Professor Sandeep. Professor Sandeep will present on simulation and analysis of greenhouse-based agri-voltaic system using Energy 3D software. It's over to Professor Sandeep.
Good morning to all, and thank you for the big thanks to the organizers for allowing me to present this paper. Okay, so let me first go into the presentation mode. Okay, so the topic of my presentation is basically the simulation and the analysis of the greenhouse-based agrivoltaic system using Energy 3D software. So Professor Vasi has already mentioned in his talk about the agrivoltaic system and why it is actually still in an infant stage in India. So when we talk about the agrivoltaic system, basically it is a system which combines agriculture and photovoltaic system. Now, basically, our farmers have huge acres of land which are used only for cultivating different type of crops during different seasons, or they are used as farms for their animals, like those rearing of cows and sheep and others. Now, if in these lands if the photovoltaic systems can be installed, then we have the dual purpose of using not only the agriculture but also using the solar energy or tapping the solar energy to generate electricity. So basically here you can see from this simple picture where we have the image of land, okay, which is being used for cultivation as well as for generating solar electricity by using the solar cells, so or the solar panels. So you see that the solar panels here are kept or installed at a height which is much above so that even the tractors can move under those panels. So these solar panels basically they will tap the solar energy and convert them into electrical energy, which can be fed into the grid to supply it to the nearby houses or maybe to factories. So why is the actually the advantage of using such a system? So as you can see, this is a very simple illustrative illustration given. So if you have like a field of 1 hectare in which you have the land is full of crops, say wheat, and another land where you have installed number of solar panels for to tap or to use the renewable energy. So these two fields can be combined together. Okay, and then what can be done is that the solar energy can be used to create energy, or that is basically electricity, and the agriculture can also be used. Okay, or basically the agricultural crop can be grown. So as from this illustration, you can see that you have efficiency of about 60% more than what has been obtained in the using a land especially for agriculture and the land for renewable energy using solar. So by using the agrivoltaic system, both this agriculture and solar voltaics can be combined together, and which will increase the efficiency and the utility of the of that land where the system can be installed. Now, in India, such a system has been actually done in the central arid zone, and the work has been done by the Central Arid Zone Research Institute, Jodhpur, that is near the Bhuj area, and they have calculated that if you need 1 megawatt of solar energy, then you need about 2 hectares area land. So in 2 hectares area of land, the crops can be grown, plus 1 megawatt of the energy can be obtained. So when coming on to the different types of the solar voltaic cell or the agrivoltaic cell or agrivoltaic system, you have numerous designs which have already been adopted in the European countries and mostly by China. So here you can see the different pictures of the agrivoltaic system. Here on the first picture, you can see that there are panels which are installed at a very good height. Okay, so that even the tractors can move to plow the fields. And then you can have the solar panels installed at a height which is much lesser, but these solar panels can be used as a shading area for animals like the sheep or the cows or the or horses to rest during the grazing time. And also the agrivoltaic system can be extended to greenhouses. Like you have a number of greenhouses where the panels can be installed on the roof as well as in separate installing stands. So here the lower pictures shows the different types of the agrivoltaic system in greenhouses. Like here is the agrivoltaic system using greenhouse in shade type of roofs. So in this shade type of roofs, these greenhouses can not only tap the solar energy but also use the rain collected from or the rainwater collected from the slope for the crops as well as for different applications. And this is another design which I got it from a website, and this is done in Europe also. And here is another agrivoltaic based greenhouse which uses a gabriel roof. So in Europe mostly, and also in China, so they have actually progressed very well in using the agrivoltaic system in separate fields or in greenhouses. So in my topic of this presentation, I've used the greenhouse because this greenhouse has got certain advantages, like you can grow different types of crops or vegetables or even flowers in a controlled environment. So the water can be obtained, the water means the water for the plants or the crops can be used from underground, or maybe rainwater harvesting can be adopted. So using the agrivoltaic system in greenhouses presents 3 types of advantages. One is that the crops or the vegetables or the flowers can be grown in a controlled environment. Then secondly, the generation of the electrical energy can be done with the help of the solar panels installed on the greenhouses. And thirdly, the rainwater harvesting can be done, which can be used for the crops as well as cleaning of the solar panels. So this whole work is being carried out in a software environment using a software which is called as the Energy 3D. So basically this Energy 3D, it's an engineering tool which is used for designing green buildings or maybe power stations, mainly the renewable power station based on solar cells. So you can using this type of software enables the user to design different types of building which can be optimal for or which can be designed so that optimal design for getting or for tapping the solar energy can be made. And this software also uses artificial intelligence and optimization technique so that the good analysis can be done with the help of the software. Now for this work, two types of greenhouses has been designed. One is a greenhouse which is based on shaded roof, and here this and the other is a greenhouse which is based on the gabriel roof. So both the greenhouses has been, after designing, has been analyzed based on the amount of heat that has been trapped, or the heat input for through the glass windows or the semi-transparent windows, and on the solar energy that is generated from the PV cells. So for the first part of the analysis, after designing the greenhouses, the location of the house where it will be situated is given as input in the software. So for this, we have taken the Guwahati as the location where the greenhouse will be located, and that is given by using the latitude data for for a particular place. So at first, the annual solar yield is being obtained for 1 whole year, that is from January to December 2021, and the annual variation of temperature, it is automatically calculated and displayed on a graph. So from here, the next part of the analysis is done for the greenhouses individually. So we have taken the shade type greenhouse, which is designated as GH1, and there we have separately taken the two structures 1 and 2. So these two structures, as it can be seen, that it has got the solar panels installed on the roof. So not all the whole of the roof has been used for the solar installations or for solar energy, but some portion of the roof has been used for getting the sunlight for the crops or the vegetables. Then the side windows, they are also considered to be made up of glass or semi transparent materials. So all these windows or the roof positions and their panels has been designated, and their analysis has been done. So for the analysis part, we take the individual area for the roof as well as the windows. Like if we take the roof of structure 1 of GH1, that is the shade type building or the shade type structure, and for the roof of structure 1, the analysis is done from the north to south direction. That is the positions of the building with respect to the direction has to be given. So based on that, the analysis of the solar power that is actually generated, or basically the solar energy, and the heat gain is calculated and displayed. So this is done automatically by the software based on the input data, that is the location or the directions or the size of the structure which we want to analyze. Now, after that, the roof of structure 2, that is basically the window 2, it is done in the same way. And based on this analysis, we can see that the in case of structure 1, the solar power, it is much higher, and so is the heat gain in case of the solar power and heat gain for structure 1. Basically it is much higher, and in structure 2 it is much less. So sorry, no, not much less, but it's a slight variation is there. So now after this we do the analysis for the side windows. Now the side windows are taken that they are all made up of glass materials, so that direct sunlight can enter through the side windows. And basically from here also taking the area and the alignment of the north south or the south north direction, we have the analysis of the solar power and the heat gain for the side windows, that is for Windows 3 and Windows 4. So Windows 3 is for the side window of structure 2, and window 4, which is just the replica of Windows 3, is the side window for structure 1. So based on the after this, we can have the analysis of the solar panels that is installed on roof 1 and 2. And for this, both the analysis of the solar panels can be combined together. That means we can take both the area of the two structures, and then we can find out the what is basically the power generated, that is annually, from the solar panels that is installed in those two structures. So the analysis is also done, and the annual electricity generated, it is calculated by the software. So after this, putting some sensors, as you can see here is a small dots given. So these are actually the sensors which can be installed or which can be simulated, and from these sensors the data of the energy density can be found out, and this is actually displayed or basically the energy density is calculated and displayed by the software for one whole year. Then we took another type of greenhouse that is based on Gabriel roof, and this and the area for this type of greenhouse is much less than the shade type roof. And here also we had designated the windows through which the solar light can enter through the roof and the side windows. And based on the designations and the area, the different the plots of the solar energy versus the time it is obtained. And there and from this graph, it can be seen that in case of the second greenhouse that is designated as ZH2, the variations of the energy through the roof or through the side window is almost similar. The heat gains are of course different, but the value of the heat gains are different, but the pattern of the heat gain or the solar power and that is can be obtained through all the windows or through all the transparent openings is almost similar. And if we take the solar panels into consideration for the second type of greenhouse, that is GH2, then and use the simulation software to run it for one whole year, then you can see that there's the variation of the solar energy obtained with the utility also. So here from as the simulation results shows that there is a decrease in the solar energy between the month of May to September. Okay, from May to September, so suddenly there's a decrease, and this basically from this graph we have the annual solar panel yield and the annual electricity generated. So these are all calculated based on the input parameters, and it's directly given by the software. So the energy density is also calculated, and this is based on the installation of the sensors on the on or near the solar panels. So after this comes the summary table. So based on the input data, whatever was given for the analysis, so we have the following summary table, that is GH1 given in these figures, and the total number of solar panels is of course same for both the structures, and the annual solar panel yield and the electricity generated is all calculated. And similarly, you can see is the table for the second structure, that is for GH2. So in both these greenhouses, that is the shade type roof and the Gabriel roof, the rainwater harvesting facility can be incorporated. So this again calls for additional cost, which is
I'm sorry to interrupt. I request the presenter to kindly summarize as well as possible,
so
because we have crossed the time. Thank you.
Okay. So basically here the rainwater harvesting also comes as an additional cost. So there actually this written as it can be incorporated. So it is also based on the region where these greenhouses or this type of greenhouses are installed. So these are my references. So not much reference is being obtained here. Okay, and thank you for listening. Any questions in this regard? Or
Thank you, Professor Sandeep. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, for want of time, we cannot take in any questions. In case if any audience has any pressing questions, I would like to request you to email to Professor Sandeep. Thank you. Please join me for a big round of applause to Professor Sandeep. Next, we have Mr. Rakesh Moore presenting on smart grid power quality improvement by using PV-DVR. I would like to request Mr. Rakesh to make it within time, as we are already 15 minutes over time now. So it's over to Rakesh.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, we
Hello.
can hear you. Yes, yes, you are audible, please.
My screen is visible, sir.
Not yet.
Now, guide is Dr. Nitin Bhasme, sir, which is Associate Professor at Department of Electrical Engineering at Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad. My paper presentation topic is power quality improvement by using photovoltaic fed DVR. These are the contents of my presentation topics. The objective behind my paper presentation work is to study the concept of smart grid, to study the various power quality issues which are occurred in the conventional grid and smart grid, to carry out the performance analysis of the proposed system, which is depicted in my research paper, to develop a software model to mitigate the power quality issues which are occurred during operation in smart grid, and to simulate and validate the improved results on the MATLAB simulating platform. Everybody knows about the conventional grid. In a conventional grid system, the one generating plant which is having bulk amount of generation is situated at a location which is suitable for that operation of that plant, and that plant supplies energy to the various areas which is situated at a longer distance. So due to this, in that system, as a transmission takes at a long distance, so the various losses are occurred in system. Sometimes our faults are occurred on transmission line, so it makes it difficult to find out the location, a proper location at which the fault is occurring. So also in conventional grid system, if the any failure in the plant occurs, then the all areas which are connected to that power plant are goes in blackout state. So there are the various disadvantages of conventional grid system. So as a day by day we are entering in 21st century, the smartness is various system is occurring. So it makes us necessary to switch towards the smartness in the grid system. So the smartness in the today's electrical power grid is a progress of a system that was used firstly 100 years before. As decade passes, the many new needs arise in the grid, and we shows that the current grid system will become inappropriate soon in upcoming days. So to achieve the smartness in the grid system, the many various new types of equipment used in a power systems, like a transformer, transmission lines, which are costly, and peoples are deserved for the communication facility, information technologies, and controlling script to grow up the performance of the grid. In last few years, many more technology related to power system are becomes less costly. So for trial purpose, the demonstration of this technology are affordable, but still it will be more costly to implement it in the technologies of smart grid throughout all over the network. But still we are trying to achieve the smartness in the system. For achieving one kind of smartness in the system, we implement a concept of a distributed generation. In the distributed generation, the areas which we have to energize are the developed in smaller sections, and for each section we generate the energy for particular means for each section there is a one separate power plant. For distributed generation concept, we uses the many renewable sources such as the solar energy. If any section or any area consists of the small water source, so using that water we can generate the small scale hydel power plant for energy generation. But during this generation, the power quality issues implement makes an important role. Due to the power quality issues, the voltage profile waveform or current waveform current waveform profile get disturbed. Everybody knows about the induction motor. For induction motor speed controlling, we uses mostly the V by F control scheme. In that scheme, the voltage we controlling the voltage and also the frequency for controlling the speed of induction motor. If any changes in voltage occur, then that affects on the speed performance of induction motor. So during the distributed generation, if a voltage profile or power quality of voltage wave is get disturbed, so that the voltage profile get disturbed, the speed of the induction motor is also disturbed. And also we knows that the many information technology equipments or communication facility equipment or electronic components are very sensitive in the nature. Means any change in the voltage wave or occur, there is the disturbance in the operation of that equipments. And also the for achieving smartness in the system, we mainly breakers or relays which are used in smart grid system are mostly of the digital system. And we consider that the digital systems are so much corrective more than the in corrective more than the analog system. So for a small any small change or any small disturbance, their operation they get operated. So the malfunctioning of there may be the chances of the malfunctioning of the relaying or circuit breaker equipment. So power quality is makes an important role. The various power quality issues in the voltage waveform are as follows. First is the voltage sag. As per IEEE standard 1159, the voltage sag means the decrease in the system voltage level between the 0.1 to 0.9 times of the normal RMS system voltage. Means for this system the voltage is get reduced down, which is to be zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.9 times of the normal RMS voltage. The causes behind the occurring of voltage sag is mainly due to the faults happening on transmission line. Then there are also the we connect a very much heavy or non-linear loads in the system. In means it's a starting of heavy load. It also affects on the voltage profile, due to which the voltage sag is occur. Voltage swell. The as per IEEE standard, the voltage swell means for there is the increase in the voltage level in the to from 110% to 180% of normal voltage system. The voltage swelling phenomena in the system is occurring due to the switching of large inductive load at a time or energizing of a large capacitor bank. So as we energize the capacitor bank at a time, it rises the system level, system voltage level. uh, then voltage unbalance. In the voltage unbalance level, everybody knows that the in three phase system the three phases phase displacement is 180-degree apart from each other, but due to voltage unbalance condition, the zero crossing events of the all phases or two or three phases is get disturbed. Means uh, they must be cross the zero voltage zero crossing at 120-degree apart from each other, but before or after 120-degree they crossing the they cross the zero, due to which the three phase voltage waveform get disturbed. Due to this voltage unbalance, the uh, mostly the loads which are operated on three phase voltages are get disturbed. Then there may be the chances of also the occurring of harmonic in the voltage wave. Harmonics are the some other frequency components which are occurring in it disturb the total voltage which is the sinusoidal voltage profile into non sinusoidal shape. The causes behind this the harmonic distortion is mainly due to the non-linear industrial loads such as welding machine, variable speed machine drives, or large UPS system or lighting system. Uh, Sometimes there is a transient or occurs in the voltage wave. When there a sudden change occurs in system voltage, the some variation found in a steady state condition of voltage whose frequency is different than the power frequency. These changes are known as the transients. Transients are comes under the short duration events. the detection of the transients is difficult, as the conventional meters are which are for monitoring purposes are of the limited frequency. There may be two types of these transients: the unidirectional transients and oscillatory transients. When the variation in the voltage wave is unidirectional, then it is known as a unidirectional, and oscillatory when the variation in the both direction means positive as well as negative half cycle, then these transients are known as the oscillatory transients. Then the interruption, when the sudden load is switching off in the system. So so when the sudden load or large load is switching off in the system, due to is there is the reduction in the system voltage to 10% of nominal RMS voltage level. uh, so this is known as the interruption. This interruption sometimes occur for 60 seconds, or sometimes it occurs for more than the 60 seconds. The causes behind occurrence of interruption is due to the faults on transmission line, or the uh, large inrush currents it flows in the transmission lines, which also causes for the interruption. Then then the voltage flickering. As per IEEE standard, the voltage fluctuation can be defined as the precise changing phenomena in the voltage wave, or a series of change in voltage, in which the level of voltage magnitude drops down between the voltage limit that are specified by American National Standard C84.1. These variation are ranges from the 1% to 70% of normal system voltage. So for overcoming or for
Sorry
providing
for
the
interruption.
compensation.
I request the presenter to kindly conclude. This time is up. Thank you.
Okay, sir. For overcoming or mitigating this issue, I implement a dynamic voltage restorer. For energizing of the dynamic voltage restorer, we require a separate DC supply and also control circuit. The DVR consists of the one 3-leg bridge inverter, which is having DC energizing source. Then this 3-leg converter injects the voltage through series transformer in the transmission line, which provides the compensation for all these power quality issues. For energizing of the DVR, I implement here the solar panel. As a conventional DVR system requires a DC supply. For DC supply is achieved from the battery or fuel cell. In my work, I use the solar photovoltaic panels for energizing of this 3-leg bridge inverter, which injects the voltage in the transmission line through series transformer. And when there is a sagging system, the 3-leg converter is injects voltage into the system, so these voltages get added in the supply voltage, and due to which the load voltage profile it get managed. So the load gets a voltage having a uniform voltage profile. This is the waveform for the voltage sag condition, and this is the waveform for the voltage swelling condition, and this is the waveform for voltage unbalanced condition. So in these three waveform, we observed that for all the three conditions, the load receives an uniform voltage profile. These are the of my observed readings, which are uh, verified as per also as per the calculation. So from this work, I conclude that it can be observed that photovoltaic field divider provides a compensation and mitigates the various issues of power quality related to the voltage wave, such as the voltage sags well at different values and distorted voltage condition, which is subjected to various types of load. During this work, I found that the proposed system maintains the THD level of voltage wave within the limits which are specified the IEEE standard the 519. So it can be concluded that the photovoltaic DVR is one of the best device for improvement in power quality at a smart grid, as it provides the faster response and gives the compensation for voltage related power quality issues. These are my references which are I use for my work. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I can entertain one question if there is any pressing question, please.
Yes, sir.
We don't have any question from the
questions?
audience, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no question from the audience, then we will move over to next presentation. Thank you, Rakesh. Next, we have a presentation on implementation of DSM PI controller in SEPIC Zeta integrated converter for plug-in electric vehicle by Avijit Mohan. It's over to you, Avijit.
We cannot hear you, Mr. Abhi Mohan. We can see your screen, but there is no audio from your side. It seems there is some technical issue from Mr. Mohan's side. Can I request Professor Landup to kindly invite the next presenter, if it is okay, sir?
Yes, Mr. Avin's mic is still on, but while he is fixing with the mic, I think we can move on to next. May I request Mr. Akshay to present your paper on solar-fed SRM irrigation water pump, if you are
Yes,
ready,
sir.
please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm ready. Hello, sir. Can I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you, Mr. Akshay.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
I
Sir, my screen is visible to you?
Yes, we can see your screen, Mr. Akshay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Is my video is on?
Yes, we can see you. Can you
Okay.
please start your presentation? Thank you.
Very good morning, everyone, sir. So my topic, today's topic is solar-fed, SRM-driven irrigation water pump, guided by Dr. V.A. Kulkarni, madam. So here the contents that are used in my project is literature survey, objectives, introductions, components, simulation diagrams, solar design parameters, power circuitry for SR motors, parameters for PV array, SRM parameters, control schemes, and results. So here these are the literature survey that I have been carried out. Objective: to study and analyze the solar PV system and SRM motor. Here I have analyzed the parameters from the different literatures and given the advanced version of this project. Development of proposed converter through MATLAB simulation. After that, I have concluded to MATLAB simulation for the hardware system. Then parameter for converter topologies given the required output for the given MATLAB simulations. So introduction, Mr. Vasi has already explained everything about the solar. Just a few feedback or a few intro about the solar. That solar PV power agriculture power is contemplated as one of the most pleasing power application. The necessity for enhanced quality of power at supply means has become vital for various applications. Here, PV energy is given to the SRM through given converter. The boost converter is used efficiently for the system. The position control method is used for proper switching of the converter. So here, the components that I have used here is solar panel, MPPT model, drive circuit, DC-DC boost converter, switch reluctance motor, switches, position sensor box, and inverter. This is my simulation model. Here, I would like to explain that this is the PV array. This is the MPPT. The MPPT method blocks that I have used for the system. This is the position sensor. This is the inverter. This is the SRM motor, and these are the results that have been obtained. So here, as we know that 1000 watt meter per second irradiance level has been taken for the system, and the temperature is coefficient is going to be 45 degree, and the voltage and output obtained from the PV array is displayed in this area, where where it is obtained as 158 volt and 24.18 amperes. From where I can send this voltage and current to MPPT. What MPPT do is to maximize the voltage and current to its maximum power point, and given to the now the system has this voltage and current. I have given it to the MPPT. MPPT transfer it to the boost converter. MPPT also gives the gate drive circuit to the boost converter. Here the voltage and current has firstly given to the single capacitor, in which the variations in DC has been compensated, and the pure DC is given to the boost converter, where the boost converter converts low voltage and current to the high voltage and current. Thus from this the boost converter voltage and current has given to the inverter. Then the boosted voltage and current is about 361 volt and 30 amperes. So low amperes. So here when this inverter has given to the the voltage through the boost converter, it converts AC DC voltage to the AC voltage and given to the SRM motor. So the SRM motor has a voltage is of a 60 kilowatt rating, having 6x4 pole 3-phase switch reluctance motor. As we have you already have known about the switch reluctance motor, that it has the very flexible system regarding to other motors at modern as well as for the large applications. So I have used this switch reluctance motor. Now the speed of the motor is given in the scope, that is 1800 rpm, and the result has been shown further. Now the speed of the motor, how this speed of the motor is controlled. This is the position sensor, where the voltage and current or the signal is fed into the in this block, and the appropriate signal is given to the inverter to fed voltage and current regarding to the speed. So this is all about the simulation model that I have explained here. The system design parameter. The system has boost converter with estimated input voltage that I have already explained. The irrigation pump with maximum torque capacity equals to 23 Newton meter and maximum power rating of 44 kilowatt is selected. So according to this, our motor has already giving 23 Newton meter torque with the 60 kilowatt of that motor rating. Then Peter Van Ausen method is used as MPPT control, where starting duty ratio is taken as 0.1 and maximum power set is at 0.0013. Then this is the power circuitry. This is the equivalent diagram of the switch reluctance motor. So in this, The most common approach to power switch reluctance motor is to use a symmetric bridge converter that the inverter I have shown you. The phase is in a asymmetric bridge converter correspond to the phase of the switch reluctance motor. If both of the power switches on either side of the phase are turned on, then the corresponding phase shall be actuated. Once the current has risen above the set value, the switch turn off. The energy is now stored in the motor winding, maintain the current in the same direction until the energy is depleted. So in this way, the motor is working. This is a simulation model for the controlling of SRM. That is the inner model of the inverter. These are the parameters that I have taken for the PV array. That is the TP 250 MVZ is the model number of the PV panel with a 100,000 watt-meter rating. The maximum power point is 249 watt. Open circuit voltage is 36.8 volt. Short circuit current is 8.83 ampere. Voltage at MPPT is 30 volt. Current at MPPT is 8.3. Rated power array parameters here is VP voltage at maximum power point is 150 volt. PV voltage is 3.820 kilowatt. Series arrange module is NS5. There is the series arrange and parallel arrange is 5.5. And total of output voltage is 361 and total short circuit current is 24.8. That I already explained. Then the specification of SRM that I have also explained to you. These are the control schemes of boost converter. Now, here some system input voltage and current are fed from the PV module. The output of the MPPT is given to the amperator, where the duty cycle is given that will be fed to the saturation curve and given to the PWM generator. Here, the PWM generator is used as controlling the speed, as the duty ratio and the PWM signals as compared in the MATLAB simulation and or in MATLAB simulation and given it to the inverter or to control the speed. The PWM generator, the phase of the gate circuit of the boost converter. That is all what I have explained. And this is the this is MPPT. The voltage and current is fed from solar panel. This is the pulse. The duty cycle is and this MPPT signal is compared, and saturation level according to saturation level the signal is given to PWM generator. When it is compared, the pulse is given to the boost converter to control the voltage and current. This is the Peter-Van-Osler method that I have used in our project. So here it is seen that that a simple explanation of the Peter-Van-Osler method is given by this flowchart. Here the start from the start. Here from the start, we record the PV and voltage and current. Then we compute the power, change in power. Then the delay has been given according to the system. And this Peter-Van-Osler method is specially used for MPPT to calculate the maximum voltage and current obtained from the solar. As we know, why MPPT required these all the techniques, because the sun has different irradiance level. So at every irradiance level, the voltage and current obtained from the system is different. So accordingly, we cannot trace at every time the more accurate value of maximum power. So these techniques are useful to get that maximum power to so at every point of generation. So due to this MPPT technique and Peter-Van-Osler method for MPPT is used. So here, if the change in the power is positive, then delta V, that is change in voltage, is greater than 0 follows. And if the change in power is less than V, is less than 0, then the change in voltage is less than 0 follows, and then given to the switch. That is MPPT technique. The Hill-Fleming method or Peter-Van-Osler method is used for calculating maximum voltage and current of the PV array. Here the voltage at PV and voltage at PV are this is how the control SRM is controlled. This is the position sensor. This is the input from the voltage from the SRM, and this is also input that is given to the position sensor. It can compute where is the main system.
Mr. Akash, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your time is up. I would request you to conclude, please.
Okay, sir. So this is the system. This is the results that I have obtained. This is the boost converter result that we can see that this is 361 volt voltage, and this is current that is 24.18, and this is the output waveform of PV array that I have already showed you. This is output waveform of SRM, the 23 Newton meter. The 23 Newton meter is the torque, and this is the speed, that is 1800 rpm. So conclusion, the design of the SRM motor using a boost converter has been simulated in the MATLAB simulation. The required result of the system has been achieved by the simulation of the system. By the given motor, the system will run at various environmental conditions. The soft starting and running of the motor are achieved by the position control method. The Peter method is easy and flexible for calculating MPPT. These are the references that I have been used. The reference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Now we are open for questions. If anyone has question, they may please ask Mr. Akshay. I see that there are no questions.
Okay,
I think our chairperson is not here in the meeting, maybe because of some technical issue. So moving forward, I would request the next presenter to kindly present, if he is available now, Mr. Abhi Mohan. Mr. Mohan, are you there? Can you hear me? I can see you online, Mr. Abhi Mohan. Mr. Akshay, you can stop presenting now.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Abhi Mohan, can you please say something in the chat box? Yes, Mr. Abhi Mohan, can you please write if you are still, I think you're still facing audio issues, it seems. Mr. Mohan, we still cannot hear you. Can you try logging in from a different device maybe? Mr. Mohan, can you hear me?
Hello.
Mr. Mohan, our organizing secretary would contact you, or I would request you to call him immediately. I think you're still facing audio issues. So if there are no questions, then I would like to conclude this session 1. And on behalf of ICERME 2021 organizing committee, I would like to Sincerely thanks Professor Landu and Professor Yuzir Vasi sir for his time. Thank you so much to dear participants for presenting your papers. And I hope that we'll have future collaborations and interactions as well. Thank you so much. Now we will end this session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is Avi there? Avi Mohan? Avi Mohan, are you in the meeting?
We can see Avi Mohan. Yes, he's there.
I guess we will conclude the session because we will move on to the next session. Hello, Dr. Landup. Actually, Mr. Mohan is still experiencing some audio issues. So I asked him
Okay.
to contact our organizing secretary.
Okay.
So I would request you to conclude the session, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you to the organizers. We have had a very wonderful session this morning. We had Professor Vasi talking to us about the solar PV system, and then, although we were supposed to have 4 presentations, it's very unfortunate that Avi Mohan is not able to present. Nevertheless, we had a three very interesting presentations. All these 3 topics captured what Professor Vasi has talked to us this morning. Agri-Voltaics, which is very timely and relevant to our current context and also the conference theme. Then we had smart grid for quality improvement by Mr. Rakesh Moore, and then implementation of DSM Pi controller by not by Abhijit, but sorry. We had solar-fed SRM irrigation water pump, which is based on the MATLAB simulation. So thank you to all 3 of you. Very wonderful presentation. We enjoyed the session. If there are any further questions, I request you, audience, to send email to the presenters, please. With this, thank you, and a big round of applause to all the presenters, please. Okay,
Thank you so much, Dr. Landu.
Organizers now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Landu. So on behalf of the ICERME committee and Assam Don Bosco University, I would like to express our gratitude to you, sir, for taking out time and coming here and sharing your thought and experience. And I hope that in future we have such more interactions and you always enlighten us with your research and knowledge. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now we come to the end of this session, and thank you so much for joining and making this session a grand success. We will now end the session. Thank you and have a rest of the good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.